Toronto, once a bustling metropolis, now a shadow of its former self. The city that never slept now lies in a deep, unending slumber. Its vibrant streets, once filled with the sounds of life, are now eerily silent. Buildings lay in ruins, streets deserted. The echoes of laughter and chatter have been replaced by the haunting silence of desolation. The once towering skyscrapers now stand as mere skeletons of their former glory. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the occasional whimper of the wind. The wind, carrying with it the memories of a time long gone, whispers through the empty streets, telling tales of what once was. On a crumbling rooftop, a group of animals huddled together, their faces etched with worry. They were the last remnants of a world that had moved on, clinging to each other for comfort and hope.
His emerald eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, were now clouded with concern. The weight of the world seemed to rest on his small shoulders, as he looked out over the desolate landscape.
Beside him sat Larry the orange cat, his massive frame radiating a quiet strength. Larry had always been the protector, the one who stood tall in the face of adversity. Zack, the kind-hearted tapir, chewed on his lip, his brow furrowed with anxiety. He had always been the gentle soul, the one who cared deeply for his friends. Boris, the bear, known for his love of gold and even greater strength, nervously polished his lucky coin. The coin, a symbol of better times, now seemed to offer little comfort. Sandy, the chihuahua, her chef's hat askew, clutched a plate of half-eaten tacos. The tacos, once a source of joy and laughter, now lay forgotten. Her normally cheerful face was pale. The sparkle in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a look of deep sadness and loss. Toronto was gone. The city that had once been a playground, sanctuary, was now nothing more than a memory, a ghost of its former self.
What are we going to do with them?
Boris rumbled, his voice deep and gruff. He gestured with his head towards a cardboard box nestled in the center of their circle. Inside, 3 tiny figures huddled together, their pink noses twitching nervously. Hickory, Dickory, and Doc, 3 blind mice looking like they were barely old enough to leave their nest, now orphaned and thrust into a world of chaos.
They won't survive on their own.
They can't see the danger.
The weight of their responsibility pressed down on them. The fate of these innocent creatures rested in their paws.
It's all Washington's fault.
Sandy whimpered, her tail tucked between her legs. Washington, the first city to start disappearing. If that didn't happen, none of this would have happened. The world is disappearing in front of everyone's eyes. But it was gone, vanished without a trace. Rumors of his demise swirled through the devastated streets like the dust devils that danced among the rubble. Some whispered of a shadowy figure, a creature of immense power who had snatched Washington from the foundation. Others spoke of a blinding light, a catastrophic event that had ripped through the city, taking Washington and half of Toronto with it. The truth, like Washington itself, remained elusive. "We need to leave," Jerry declared, his voice firm, cutting through the fear and uncertainty that hung heavy in the air. The group, huddled together in the biting cold, looked to him for guidance. They had faced many challenges before, but this was unlike anything they had ever encountered. He'd always been a cat of action, a leader who faced challenges head-on. His bravery had inspired many, and now more than ever they needed his strength. But even he felt a tremor of fear. The unknown loomed large, and the stakes had never been higher.
"But where do we go?" one of the group members asked, their voice tinged with desperation. Larry, the orange cat, asked, his voice a low rumble. "Toronto is gone. The city so many once called home was now a frozen wasteland. Where can we possibly be safe?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their predicament.
Jerry's emerald eyes glinted with determination. "Alaska," he announced. The words seemed to echo in the cold air, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. "We'll head north, find refuge in the frozen wilderness." It was a bold plan, but it was their best chance. It's remote, dangerous, but it will buy us time. Time to regroup, to gather their strength. Time to regroup, to plan their next move. They needed to understand what had happened, to find a way to survive. Time to figure out what had happened to their city, to their friend. The loss was profound, but they couldn't afford to dwell on it. The idea, as daunting as it seemed, offered a glimmer of hope in the darkness. They would face the frozen north together, and in that unity, they found strength. But what about the mice? They were small, fragile, and utterly unprepared for the harsh realities of the world outside their tiny sanctuary. They couldn't possibly survive the arduous journey to Alaska, The rugged terrain and harsh wilderness would be too much for their tiny bodies to endure. Jerry, ever resourceful, had a plan. He knew that the journey would be perilous, but he was determined to find a way to ensure their safety.
"Larry," he called out, addressing his orange friend from years past. He didn't have to speak the words to already hate what he must say. But Boris knew Alaska better than any other, and that only left Larry to protect the mice. Larry, known for his gentle nature and unwavering loyalty, ambled over. He was always ready to help, no matter the task. He still didn't like leaving Jerry, but what other choice did any of them have?
"We need your help," Jerry continued. His voice was steady, but there was an urgency in his eyes. "These mice, they need protection, a safe haven. They are vulnerable and in desperate need of a guardian, and I know just the place." Jerry's eyes sparkled with determination as he pointed to a distant location on the map. He lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Africa, a land of vast savannas and fierce protectors. We know of a pride of lions, fierce protectors, who take in orphaned and vulnerable creatures. They could be the sanctuary these mice need. Larry, you must take them there. Ensure their safety. It's a long journey, but I believe in you."
Larry, his brow furrowed in concern, dipped his head in agreement. He understood the gravity of the mission. It was a perilous mission, fraught with danger, but he wouldn't let Jerry down. He steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He wouldn't let the mice down. Their tiny lives depended on him, and he was ready to face whatever lay ahead to protect them.
The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. The journey ahead, whether to the frozen north or the scorching savannah, would be fraught with danger.
Are we sure about this? Sandy squeaked, her voice barely a whisper. It's so far, so unknown.
We have to try, Zach said, his tone firm despite the tremor in his voice. For Washington, for Toronto, for the mice.
Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges that lay ahead, but also a glimmer of hope. They had a plan, they had each other, and they were determined to survive. With a shared look, a silent vow, they set off. Jerry, the black cat, leading the way, his emerald eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind them, Zach, Boris, and Sandy, each carrying their own burdens, their own hopes.
And in Larry's gentle care, nestled safely in a bed of soft grass, Hickory, Dickory, and Doc, oblivious to the dangers that swirled around them, slept peacefully.
Their future uncertain, but their lives entrusted to the bravest of creatures. The journey to rebuild their lives, to avenge their fallen friends, Sam and Terry, to restore what was lost, had begun. This being the first time ever that 3 cat musketeers have ever been apart from each other, will they ever be back together? No one wants to think that far ahead.